This quick presentation is going to follow this quick outline, the background information, the goals and objectives of the project, the scope, the budget of the project, the impact, implementation phases. We'll also talk a bit and acknowledge those we are collaborating with, government ministries and the stakeholders involved in the project. Basically, we start by saying this statement that the problems that we are facing in Botswana's communal rangelands are very, very complex. Very, very complex and multidimensional, and taking very many forms involving policy, people, wildlife, livestock, conflicts, and so on. It's a very, very complex scenario. But what we are going to present today is a simple solution to all this complexity. Previously, our other collaborators, in the name of Heading for Health, other collaborators sponsored by Peace Park Foundations, also Conservation International involved, as Ray Jansen mentioned. They came up with some pilot projects together with the EU, the French, and so on, and actually came up with a very, very simple strategy to deal with these problems. And the strategy is just simply strategic heading and crawling. Botswana, basically, some are so. Yeah, we discussed the rule for the Linda more approval. Never know the time I want to wait. But I'm just going to be able to for decades in one place. So today I'm going to quickly talk to this program. The strategy basically is deployment of people we call the eco-rangers. Thanks to the presence of the Ministry of Local Government here, Batopini, and then train these people on the strategies of heading cattle in order to ensure range recovery, range rehabilitation, and also to ensure strategically that we can make fire breaks using the same cattle. We know that currently fire breaks is done by graders and so on, actually exacerbating the problem. Because when you have seen grading taking place for a long time, there are just gullies going along those particular places. There are a lot of issues, like I said, it's very complex. I'm not going to attempt to go into all the issues that we have encountered as a country. Basically, by way of background, I just want to touch on the problem itself. We have talked to ecosystem degradation. And when we talk about the ecosystem, good people, we are basically looking at all the three components of the ecosystem. First and foremost is us, the people. And then we talk about the environment that we live in. I think Botswana did mention climate change conventions that took place in Paris, and Botswana did make commitments to these changes. This particular project is contributing towards that, as I'm going to say a bit later. So climate change has been a very, very serious problem, and one of the problems that we have come up with is ecosystem degradation as a result of this climate change. And ecosystem degradation means it is becoming hotter and hotter by the day. We are losing a lot of water. We are losing a lot of carbon from the soil. Very, very unreliable rainfall. Sometimes we just have downpours. I think we all remember that Honorable Mola's place in Matangwani. I think it was 5 years ago, a cloud just fell on the ground. Can you remember? These things, these are leads to poor animal condition, and these animals are very, very vulnerable to disease, and they expend a lot of energy actually to keep healthy. These animals then are vulnerable to disease. Honorable Higuama is here from Government. He can tell the story that in Government this is a major problem. Animal diseases as a result of the conflict that results thereof between wildlife and livestock. This as a result will lead to market exclusion, which has got a serious implication on the pockets of the farmers. And this is one of the areas that the project is trying to address. The decreased income that results from that, and all other undesirable effects that happen with market exclusion. Farmers then tend to go for poaching. Sometimes the issues with predators and so on, that the farmers tend to kill these predators, which are also part of our ecosystem for the tourism sector. Basically, we can very quickly run through the goals of the project. Basically, the biggest intention of this project is to increase climate resilience, our ability to cope with climate change, and basically adapt and mitigate against the effects of climate change. It is in twofold. The second issue is to slow down the emission and loss of carbon by implementing sustainable pathways for retention of carbon. Therefore, there are three main objectives of the project. First and foremost is to build capacity in the governance for climate resilience. Building capacity in all forms. Our main partner on this one will be Botswana University, who will be responsible for training and capacity building. But also other sectors that deal with policy and so on, to try and reconcile all these actions so that we can have capacity in Botswana to actually act against the impact of this climate change effects. The next issue is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as per the commitment in the Paris Convention. This is what actually attracts a lot of investment from Botswana government, because Botswana government did make commitments that they are going to take some action against climate change impact to reduce that. Basically, these emissions also tend to reduce the livelihood of the communities that are affected. In this particular area, the entire Botswana, because the project is based in Botswana, the entire population of Botswana is affected. The last objective will be to look at and implement sustainable livestock value chains. You will note that a lot of studies have been done on livestock value chains in Botswana. First and foremost by the Ministry of Agriculture. There are a lot of reports that are there talking to value chains, and also our National Strategy Office came up with a value chain document. We have all these documents in place, and the ministry initially came up with a policy to try and address the issue of value chains in 1991, which was called the New Agricultural Policy, which is still being implemented today, but has faced a lot of challenges in many areas because of conflicts with other sectors. So this project is aiming at trying to address all these issues in the long run. So these are the objectives, also put in another way. In the interest of time, I will skip that. The real aim of the project is to actually involve 6,000 people, being eco-rangers, restoration workers, and graduate monitors, who are going to be trained basically on the restoration result from water erosion. We also have wind erosion that results because of the loose ground and the water that goes uncontrollably following paths either created by graders, created by cars on the roads, or created by livestock themselves. In terms of mibila, that you see cattle following, moving in a channel. And then, basically, due to resistance to climate change, this will lead to this reduction in the emissions when we replace the carbon back into the soil. When we talk about carbon metabolism, which is the main thing, I can just simplify it by saying that a very good balanced ecosystem is very, very exemplary for Botswana. One, when you look at crude oil is a result of good carbon metabolism, where carbon is maintained in the soil in terms of dead animals, dead plants, which eventually turn into crude oil. Also closely related to crude oil, we have pure carbon like coal. Coal is also another result of very good ecosystem balance, where carbon is retained in the soil until it processes into coal. And very important for Botswana, this development over millions of years has actually come up with a huge deposit of diamond. It's carbon in its pure form. So when we talk about balancing the ecosystem, and over millions of years, we can talk about those minerals, those crude oil, diamond, coal. But here we are talking in a matter of our lifetimes. Carbon retention that is going to have immediate impact on the communities and on the ecosystem. Basically, like we said, the last component will be looking at sustainable value chains, sustainable economic development, so that our projects can take money directly into the pockets of Botswana through implementation of value chains, maintaining their livestock and managing it better so that they get better returns from that. So basically it's one project that is looking at money back in the pocket of the fund. We talk about the scope of the project. First and foremost, I have to say that there are 3 landscapes that have been identified as a pilot project. There is Government in the Northwest District, where there is a conflict between wildlife and livestock in terms of animal diseases, in terms of marketing of livestock. There are many issues in that landscape. The second landscape will be the Bubira area, where there is a lot of vulnerability to drought in Bubira, a lot of gully erosions because of free running water, a lot of issues surrounding livestock production in Gaminet because of, in Bubira because of drought. The Kalahari landscape was also identified, and in Kalahari, the landscape that has been identified is going astride 2 districts. The district of Kalahari itself and also Southern District. So the pilot project areas are going to be covering 4 administrative districts of the country, but following those 3 main landscapes that have been followed as a pilot. In these particular areas, we have 104 villages where we are going to have a lot of activity. The map shows these particular areas. I talked about Gaminet area, talk about Bubira in the northeastern part, and then we talk about the Kalahari landscape, astride Kalahari district and Southern district right over there. When we talk about the impact of this project, implementation of good management and the value chains is going to directly impact 247,000 people. According to donor requirements, 54% of the beneficiaries should be women. So the project is also very, very much gender sensitive. Yeah, you can see Mama Nakota sharing that. But then the rest of Botswana, the entire Botswana population will benefit from these impacts. This project alone is going to have a very, very serious impact on Botswana's commitment to combating the effects of climate change. It is going to contribute about half of Botswana's commitment to climate change intervention. Basically, the total carbon emissions that Botswana has committed to reducing, 50% of it, in fact 47, is going to be contributed to by this project by the year 2028. And the whole 4.6 million hectares of communal rangelands in the project sites is going to be put under this improved management. Basically, I can say at the moment that we are looking at government ministries led by the Ministry of Agriculture continuing this project until so that this impact can be felt for time immemorial with a view to reverse completely the effects of climate change. Basically, I think this is the most important slide that is summarizing the project. There is serious commitment on this project between two main partners, which is the Green Climate Fund, represented here by CI, and the Botswana government on the one hand, who contributed almost 50-50 to implement this project over the 8-year period. And the total contribution comes to about slightly over $1 million US. Sorry, $100 million US in total. Okay. I talked to the carbon flow. Basically, with business as usual, we have rangeland degradation, shortage of grazing and overgrazing, and all the issues that we can associate with overgrazing. And animals are expending a lot of energy to stay healthy. And at the end of the day, we tend to keep our animals even for a longer time. We sell our animals at an older age. And this whole equation leads to increased carbon emissions from the soil. Because of these animals and the management styles and the carbon losses from the soil, because of the experience from the bare soil. This is the business as usual that we are facing now as Botswana. And the project is looking at adaptation and mitigation and protection of these rangelands to use them for benefit so that we can have lesser energy expended on the health of animals and people, for that matter. Then we can have improved health characteristics, good production, higher slaughter weights, and more birth rates and so on. I'll talk to you a bit about the benefits of the project a bit later. And then reduce carbon emissions because of the improved carbon quality, the improved ground cover, and all the other activities that we are going to put in place. The project is going to take 8 years, and this is the scaling of the project. Starting off with a smaller pilot involving roughly 9 clusters. Then we grow. By the time, 9 villages. By the time in 2 years it's going to go into 44 villages over the next 2 years. And at the end of the project area we have reached all the 104 villages. And involving ground monitors, restoration workers and eco-rangers. These are the people who are going to be involved over the years in an increasing manner. Until at the end of the day, we have a total of 6,000 of these who have been capacitated on grazing management, basically to have effect on this. So this is the scope of the project over the 8-year period. Having started after some delays this year, and the project is going to end in 2030. The project is bringing a lot of innovation and also transformation in the implementation of its mandate. First and foremost, you can see the interest from the Ministry of Local Government. The retooling and repurposing of Ipeleke is something that the Ministry of Local Government is doing, and the project is going to take advantage of this, basically to be able to train the people who are going to implement on the ground. Basically to create a professional qualification for headers. It will be one of the main deliverables, like I said, in conjunction with Botswana. We are going to use the livestock impact to restore rangelands, basically by strategically heading the animals where they can have impact on the soil, crawling them also where they can have direct impact on the soil in terms of fertilization. It should be short-term crawling rather than currently where we have permanent crawling of cattle, eventually destroying patches of land. One of the main things will be to empower women and youth. When we talk about technology use, I think the youth therefore will create a lot of interest in a project of this nature. And we will also look for sustainability of the project by implementing this and unlocking sustainable value chains. The concept at village level will be to actually bring farmers together and have some agreements, which we have called the rangeland stewardship agreements, on how exactly they are going to manage the range, so that there can be agreement. The project has also engaged some legal partners who are looking at Botswana's policies that are in place and see how this can be reconciled in order to be able to have these agreements by farmers at the village level. So the main operation centers will be at the village level, led by the VDCs, the farmers committees, and the farmers associations at that village level, in order to agree how exactly they're going to go about the implementation of the project. These are the people who are going to be trained as eco-rangers. These are people who have to have these following competencies: the life skills, basic health and safety, record keeping, environmental skills, skills on planned grazing, so that animals do not just go grazing indiscriminately and destroy the range. They have skills on human-wildlife conflict issues, animal husbandry, and basic disease control. So these are the 8 competencies that these eco-rangers are going to be basically to be capacitated on, so that they can implement the project. This is an example of a crawl that is going to be used. Basically, it's just a crawl that is made of canvas, strategically placed. It just takes 2 hours to erect this crawl. You put it in one place for 7 days, and then move it to another place, so that you actually fertilize into the soil. Then you move this to another patch. Basically, strategically, these people will be particularly trained to look for the patches where they are going to put these particular crops, so that it has impact. And then they will take the animals directly to where they will be impacted, and away from areas where the range is under a specific threat. So basically, this is just showing you a picture of the bomber that is going to be used to crawl animals. The project has got a lot of benefits. Like I did mention, improved livestock production parameters will be a main benefit from the project to enhance livestock value chains. It will attract youth to livestock farming, and it will have an impact on reducing and having an impact on conflict with wildlife. also having impact on grazing land conflicts. Basically, I am not going to go into too much detail about the benefits because these are there, speaking for themselves and enhance the value chains. There are many stakeholders who are involved in this project. A lot of government ministries, the lead ministry being the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Environment, actually being the Climate Change Desk Office, the Ministry of Local Government, Ministry of Lands, and many other ministries and government institutions. Then we have local partners, being the farmers themselves, and all other associations, universities, academia, the private sector, and so on and so forth. And a lot of other international partners that are going to be participating in the project. Basically, this marks a very, very important event, the launch of the project, which then will be followed up by the signing of an MOU between CI and Botswana government at a later stage. And then there will be inception workshop that will follow this. Basically, to just go into details and unpack the project. And then district launches. I can see very good representation here from the districts. People who are, we are going to come to the districts for the launches and actually unpack the project even further in more detail. And then the implementation of the project as per implementation plan. Basically, this is our office, the Conservation International Office, and our contacts at CBD here in Cameroon.